Do you ever wonder what is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number? The traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community. A community not part of the mainstream, unconventional, peripheral, or extreme. Part of an anthology, a published collection of poems or other pieces of writing. This is Esoteric Lore. I'm your host, Edward Aponte, where I push you to ponder the fringes of folklore. Have you ever thought, why am I like this? Why does your body panic when your mind knows you're safe? Then this episode is for you. Here's the headline. Trauma isn't just a memory, it's a prediction your brain and body keep making, often outside of your awareness. And recovery isn't forgetting. Recovery is updating the prediction. That's the new science of emotions. Emotions are not just feelings we have, they're signals shaped by the brain, the body, and the story we learned to survive. So today we're going to do something rare online. No vibes, no slogans, just what the evidence shows about emotions, trauma, and what actually helps people recover. Supported by peer-reviewed research.
Why this matters.
In the United States, the estimated past year prevalence of PTSD is about 3.6%, with lifetime prevalence around 6.8%. And that's just PTSD, not the broader spectrum of trauma-related suffering. And trauma doesn't distribute evenly. Risk and access to care are shaped by social determinants like housing, income, safety, discrimination, real-world conditions that influence exposure and recovery. Also, not all trauma becomes PTSD. Many people experience adversity and do not develop chronic disorder. But adversity can still leave an imprint on emotional regulation, on relationships, your sleep, and your health. One of the most influential public health findings on this is the ACE framework, ACE, as adverse childhood experiences accumulate, long-term health risks rise in a graded dose response pattern. So the question isn't who's broken. The question is, what did the nervous system learn? Then keep rehearsing.
What emotions are in the neuroscience?
Let's simplify without dumbing down. Key idea number one. Emotions are action plus interpretations, not just feelings. Emotions recruit the body. Heart rate, breath, muscle tone, attention, memory search, and social signaling. They're not decoration, they're coordination. Key idea number 2. Emotion regulation is a skill set timed along the emotion timeline. One of the most useful models in modern emotion science is James Gross's process model, which maps regulation strategies to different points in the emotion cycle, before it blooms fully and after it's already roaring. Early strategies like reframing meaning tend to have different consequences than later strategies like suppressing expression after the emotion already is in motion. And suppression is common, especially in cultures or environments where showing emotion was unsafe. But suppression has a real neurocognitive cost profile, and its mechanisms have been studied directly in the brain. Translation: trauma often trains people into late-stage regulation to, quote, endure, clamp down, disappear. Recovery often teaches early-stage regulation. Notice sooner, name it, shift meaning, choose response. So if emotions are coordination systems, trauma is what happens when the system keeps coordinating for war that has ended years ago.
What trauma changes? Memory, identity, and the alarm system.
A modern view of PTSD is not only fear, it's disturbance in memory and often identity. How the self is experienced in time, in the body, and in relationships. Trauma can produce intrusions. For example, flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance of places, feelings, even of success, hyperarousal, startled, irritability, sleep disruption, negative shifts in mood, belief, self-concept. And here's the brutal logic. Avoidance reduces distress short term, but preserves the threat prediction long term, which brings us to the central recovery mechanism that shows up again and again in the evidence. Recovery usually requires approaching the memory or the cues safely so the brain can update. That's not motivational talk. That's the backbone of multiple gold standard therapies.
What actually works? The evidence-based core.
Let's talk outcomes. Number 1, trauma-focused psychotherapies. Strong evidence-based, 2 of the most strongly recommended trauma-focused treatments are PE, prolonged exposure, and CPT, cognitive processing therapy. A major discussion in the field is not whether they work. Many studies show substantial improvements, but how to optimize delivery, reach, and retention. These treatments don't erase what happened to you. Number 2, EMDR, evidence of benefits, but debates about components and certainty. EMDR has a large literature. Recent systematic reviews, meta-analysis continues to find symptom reduction versus wait list in many contexts, while also noting limits like evidence, certainty, and questions about which components drive change. A clean takeaway: EMDR can help. The field still argues about why and how much we can generalized long-term, but memory reconsolidation and rewriting approaches promising, still evolving. There's increasing focus on therapies that explicitly leverage memory reconsolidation principles using controlled recall and reprocessing to alter the emotional payload of traumatic memory. A randomized trial of, quote, rewind intervention reported a large effect-sized signal in its cohort, and protocols and trials around reconciliation-based approaches like RTM are moving forward with the research. Community is still sharpening the methods. Sleep as an intervention window. Targeted memory reactivation, TRM or TMR. Here's an emerging frontier using sleep as a window to strengthen therapeutically modified memories. Work in this area discusses presenting cues during sleep to influence consolidation are now being explored in PTSD treatment. We used to treat sleep as a symptom. Now sleep is being studied as a lever. Pharmacological therapy-assisted psychoactive therapy. Assisted therapy shows signals with serious scrutiny. Critical trials published in Nature Medicine reported significant PTSD symptoms reduction with MDMA-assisted therapy in controlled settings. But crucially, regulators and advisory bodies have raised concerns about study design, bias, and risk-benefit, and have recommended against approval at points in the process. Responsible takeaway is this: promising results exist, and scrutiny is real. This is not a DIY conversation. This is clinical research terrain.
The new science in one sentence.
If I had to compress the new science into one line, it's this: trauma recovery is nervous system learning, paired with meaning making, done in a safe relationship. That's why these interventions rhyme, even when they look different. They reduce avoidance. They increase tolerance for emotion without overwhelm. They update the threat prediction. They rebuild identity and agency. And yes, this is where esoteric lore gets practical, not mystical.
5 evidence-aligned practices you can try, non-clinical.
Now, these aren't substitutes for therapy. They're training wheels for regulation, especially if you're stable enough to experiment gently. Practice number 1, name the emotion precisely. Instead of I'm stressed, try I'm grieving, or I'm ashamed, or I'm vigilant, I'm disappointed. Precision reduces chaos. Practice number 2, shift early in the timeline. Ask, what happens right before the spike in the emotion or the memory? A sound, a text, a message, a tone, a body sensation. Early detection creates options aligned with the process model of regulation. Practice number 3, reappraisal question. What else could this mean? If my nervous system wasn't time traveling, not positive thinking, just alternate hypothesis. Practice number 4, sleep protection as trauma hygiene. If sleep is a lever for memory processing, treat it like one. Regular schedule, downshift ritual, light management. And if nightmares are severe, get clinical support. Practice number 5, the micro approach, not micro avoid. Pick one safe small cue you avoid and approach it for 60 seconds. Then exit. Teach the body we can touch this and return to normalcy.
The Esoteric Lore vow, evidence plus dignity.
A final thought. Trauma is not weakness. It's adaptation. Sometimes brilliant adaptation, frozen in the wrong time. And recovery isn't becoming fearless. Recovery is becoming updatable. If you want a single mantra that's scientifically honest, it's this. My nervous system learned this. It can learn something new. As always, I leave you with a poem. The body learned before you had words. The body learned before you had language, before memory had dates, before fear had a name. It learned in fractions of seconds which doors were safe, which voices meant danger, which silences lasted too long. This is not weakness. This is intelligence without consent. The scar is not the wound. The scar is the system remembering how it survived. But survival is not a life sentence, because the nervous system is not a stone tablet. It is wet, living clay. It updates, it softens, it relearns time. Recovery is not forgetting. Recovery is the moment your body realizes the room has changed. The thread is gone. The breath can deepen. The future no longer collapses into the past. You are not broken. You were trained, and training can change. Tonight, let the body hear what the mind already knows. You are here. You are now. And the story is still being rewritten. If you like this video, please subscribe, share, and give us a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you next time.